Ba-na-na, ba-na, ba-na-na, ba-na-na. It gets sweeter. It gets sweeter and sweeter. This one is an interesting one, though, guys. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back into another Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. I am your host, Rob Haytayan, joined with my two co-hosts, Justin Lowe and Nick Franco. You guys know the gang. It was a weird one tonight for the Celtics. Obviously, tonight, the Celtics without Jaylen Brown and Derek White as they were on the injury report. You kind of expect to see these types of things, moving into the final stretch of these last couple handful of games. I'm sure the injury report is going to be just as long and just as impactful as, next games against Portland. But as for tonight, guys, this was an interesting one because Sacramento's in a particular spot right now that is very, these games are very important for them. And Boston, on the other hand, is really not in any need to pick up wins, as you kind of saw with that last 9 minutes of the fourth quarter rotation that we saw from Joe Maz and the Celtics. But guys, before we hop into it, because again, we do have some things to discuss tonight, you know the drill, Justin and Franco, your initial thoughts, reactions, kind of light takeaways from tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I thought tonight's Celtics game was pretty all right. Like it was like one of the weirdest games I think I've ever seen. It was like a baseball score halfway through. It was 6-3. Celtics only had 3 points in the first half a quarter. And then they turned it on. Shots started to fall. I thought the ball movement was really solid all night. I thought the defense was really solid all night as well. Sacramento second night of a back-to-back, they were missing some shots, but I thought Boston's defense was really good. It's what I said a couple weeks ago. Like the Celtics have a really cool opportunity that they haven't found themselves in recent years having, and that's having like preseason games to the postseason, chances to work on things. We saw a lot of zone tonight. We don't really see that much zone. Celtics are trying to work on things that they might have to turn to in the playoffs, and they need to sharpen some. They got to sharpen their pencil a little bit. When you get to the playoffs, you're not doing what you're doing for 82 straight games, right? Like things are changing up here and there. So the Celtics were kind of testing things out tonight. Obviously, we saw those extended bench minutes in that second half when Joe rested the starters. Sacramento went on a run, but as you mentioned, Rob, I mean, rightfully so. One, the Celtics were playing their G League squad, and two, Sacramento was fighting for their playoff lives. We'll get into that and their situation a little bit later tonight. But overall, terrific win for the Celtics. Kristaps looked healthy. Jason Tatum was impacting the game. I really thought even at times when Sacramento was cutting into the game, the Celtics put the ball in Jason Tatum's hands, and Tatum went to the bucket, got a layup or got a dunk, and then got himself to the free throw line and got going there in that third quarter. But overall, Franco, a win's a win, especially this late in the season. But I really liked what I saw from the Celtics tonight.
Right, and get accustomed to that for the rest of the season. It's only going to get weirder from here. I was putting it into the chat earlier. I basically took out the starting 6 for the rest of the season. Right. I mean, but tonight was a story of a team that is extremely tired but is extremely desperate in the Sacramento Kings. And they really were fighting for their lives against our back of end rotation players. I'm looking at the box score right now. De'Aaron Fox played 44 minutes tonight.
Yeah, I mean, this is a playoff game for them.
Yeah.
It's
and Keegan Murray played 42, and they put up a valiant effort to come back, and it is a strong testament to our bench that they were able to close it out. Sure, I would like to see more scoring from them, but that was a much bigger situation that they are not accustomed to. And yeah,
it's like when Joe Mazzulla took a timeout with I don't know if it was about 2 or 3 minutes left, and Sacramento had cut it down to single digits, and it's like, okay, you figure Sacramento's going to go on their run regardless if the bench was in or not, because the circumstance that they're in. You figured they were going to give it one final push, and then it was interesting that Joe, what I admire about Joe Mazzulla is, he believes in himself and he believes in his team. And there was a moment where you're kind of sitting there thinking like, oh man, we love to watch the bench guys. And I know this game, win or lose, loss, this doesn't define our season, but there's a moment where you're like, does Joe throw the starters back in here? It's getting a little too close for comfort. But no, Joe stuck with the bench, and it was essentially he treated the bench guys how he treats the starters. How I know the philosophy of not calling the timeouts is you got to figure it out. But at the same time, Joe Mazzulla did take the timeout, and he let that group figure it out. And that group was able to go on, get a game-winning shot, win the game, and get a defensive stop at the end of the game. Something the starters can't do in crunch time. So I'm sure that those bench guys will be bragging in the locker room. But overall, Franco, this was a win where I'm sitting here and it's kind of nice. It's like we just played a playoff team, and it's like, here's the thing. This Celtics team is very talented, like 1 through 15. So I'm not going to act like these guys shouldn't be where they are right now, for sure. I'm not going to discredit them. But for Peyton, guys like Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser had a rough night. I think we should, 1 for 18 from the floor, a historic performance from Sam Hauser, rightfully so, though he's been shooting the piss out of the ball. So kind of figured he was bound for a night like this. But getting these guys the reps, and as you mentioned, Franco, it's like our remaining games, other than the Milwaukee game and the New York game,
they just have to play Tuesday and Thursday, and then
it's like even then, though, Franco, it's like I'm sure Boston will try something.
Do it for bragging rights, just to close out the season.
Right?
You can't let them have anything easy.
But it's also like these teams that are coming up, they're not really playing for anything. Essentially, other than like a draft pick, like who do we have?
A loss is only helping out Portland,
right? Like Portland, Washington.
Like they are looking forward to playing the Boston Celtics. Like, oh, another free loss to get that number 1 pick and
right.
percentage.
Right. So it's like, again, these games coming up are going to be opportunities for those types of guys. And then it's like when you bring up, these types of games, Rob, Franco and I were just talking about how the bench closed out a close game better than the
I got all of it. Don't worry.
Closed out the game. But, this is what you're going to want to see the last 6 games is this group's resiliency. This group, they can prove that they can win in so many different ways this season. As Scal said at the top of the broadcast tonight on NBC Sports Boston, that's what's been so satisfying about the Celtics team is they're finding different ways to win every night. And it doesn't have to be a 1-point win or a 20-point win. They're finding different ways to win.
I think that's a very good point. But I honestly think right now with the Celtics and where they currently stand and where the season's at, the truth is, guys, no matter how much you want to put stock into these games, you shouldn't. Because especially this one, and I do think that after the Celtics dropped those 2 to the Hawks, there is something to be said about their game-to-game ability to come locked in. I think was in question after blowing a 30-point lead and not being able to bounce back the following night or 2 nights prior to the same team. I think there were some answers to be there's questions to be answered tonight, though. You talk about that lead, Justin and Franco. You really look at it. First of all, you look at the Kings situation. The Kings right now are absolutely fighting for their lives in the wild. Get this, 4 games are separating the 5th seeded Mavericks and the 10th seeded Warriors. If you really look, think about it. The Celtics had their not even their second string, their third string kind of was in. You had guys like Shvi Mykhailiuk rarely played.
Jordan Wall.
They're lucky we didn't put Drew Peterson in.
Exactly. If you really look at it, and then here come the Kings, right? Here come the Kings, who are currently speaking tied with the Lakers now down there for 8 and 9 in the play-in tournament. So really, even if the Celtics lost this game, I'm sitting here thinking like, it kind of sucks because our home record's not as good as it once was. Right. It would have been 33-4 versus 34-3. But really, the unfortunate part, because again, we love talking about this team and where they currently stand and everything. But it's like the Celtics are who the Celtics are. at this point of the year. This game against the Kings doesn't tell us anything about who these guys are, especially when you don't have Jaylen Brown, you don't have Derek White. So it's like, again, personally speaking, I thought it was a great win for the Celtics because I think the Kings were playing with purpose. The Kings were playing like their lives are at stake, right? I mean, this is like you said, Justin, this was a playoff game for the Sacramento Kings. And the Celtics were able to come in shorthanded and handle business. And again, you look at that 18-point lead. How much do you really want to invest in that? I mean, the bench was in. Jordan Walsh has been a main Celtic all season long and was playing these good reps, I think, for him.
That's why I think that these types of games, it's not so much that they tell you something and this game isn't going to win us a game 7 against Denver, right? But at the same time, I do think it goes against certain narratives like the Celtics don't have a bench and the Celtics don't have this and the Celtics, can't rely, Jason Tatum, and all this stuff. And, when you get guys like Peyton Pritchard, and I mentioned it, for the money that we have him, a pretty penny, even with that contract extension, and he can come in on a consistent basis doing what he's been doing. I mean, I have so many clips of myself hyping up Pritchard the past month, but it's so true. And he's just been able to put together such a really solid stretch of basketball. And I mean, it's nothing to overlook. And he was out there leading the group. He was out there leading everybody.
This is a great segue because, again, if you go onto our Instagram right now and you go to the little Reels section, I think 3 or 4 out of the last 5 clips has been us talking about Peyton Pritchard. And guess what? You're going to see one tomorrow too, because tonight's player of the game is Peyton Pritchard. Guys, at first, I thought the Celtics maybe made a mistake by not dealing this guy at the deadline. I thought maybe they should have not paid this guy money. I'm going to take it with my chest, right? I admit when I'm right, and I admit when I'm wrong. I'm a man of integrity. I was wrong. Again, I've said it. I've said it all. I'll pass.
You said it about Cornette. You'll say it about Pritchard.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, man, oh man, am I happy that I was wrong. Because Peyton Pritchard tonight in a good win at home with Tatum and Porzingis playing. He led the way for the Celtics, 21 points, 3 assists, 2 steals, 50% for both the floor and the 3. Justin, Franco, what has Pritchard been able to give the Celtics that is so valuable?
Not to, and this is no disrespect towards Peyton Pritchard, Franco, but I kind of want to give you the floor and give you the chance to talk about Pritchard, because over the last month, I feel like I've done nothing but talking about Peyton Pritchard. The beginning of the season, I was talking a lot about my guy, O'Shea Brissett and Nehemiah Queta. Now I'm starting to talk about guys like Peyton Pritchard. I'm a little bit sick of it because he's just playing too good, and I can't keep talking about him, Franco. I sound like a broken record because he's just so friggin' good on a nightly basis.
How much good can we talk about Peyton Pritchard in 1 month?
He's getting gooder. He's getting gooder, Franco.
Gooder. I like that new vocab word. Gooder.
I'm very excited for it. The comparison that I've made earlier on when we first started hyping up Pritchard, the Eddie House take, I think has aged pretty well.
Bring that back.
And I'm hoping that it continues to grow, especially when it comes down to playoff time. 33 minutes tonight. This is one of those games, and next 5 games over the rest of the regular season, these are the games that you're going to get from him. He's going to be the one on the court, having to be that playmaker, having to set up Hauser to get those shots to get the team going. They are running their second team for the rest of the season, and Peyton Pritchard is going to be the face of that. And he's here for the next 4 years. The extension that we got him for, the value that we got him for salary cap wise, it's going to show its worth in the overtime as the CBA grows. What he's making is basically going to be a minimum by 2026 or 7. And I think his growth as a facilitator is just going to be extremely key, because when you put him in with our starters, he's not missing a step.
Right. Well, and I think that's what's like so important, because it's like the dude can run the second unit at a very, very high level. But it's not even that. Tonight you saw him running with Tatum and Porzingis.
I was gonna
in
say he was
Holiday.
running the first unit tonight.
I know, and it's like
graph.
again, assist numbers were down for Pritchard, but look, 21 points on efficient shooting. So it's like that's my thing where we've seen nights. And remember, what was my one thing against Pritchard was if he's not scoring, what is he doing?
Right.
Tonight, he gives me 2 steals. I'm loving that. The defensive energy from Pritchard's been great. But guess what, guys? Just the last game, he only had 11 points, shot 40% from the floor. He dished out 8 assists. He's finding different ways to be an effective player and finding different ways to contribute to winning basketball. And that is exactly what I wanted to see out of him. And that, quite frankly, that's exactly what I wasn't seeing. In the past month, it's been all of that for Peyton Pritchard. I mean, it has been so incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I think this team has and I really mean it. Watching these guys and covering these guys on a day-to-day basis, I haven't felt this continuity in this collectiveness in a Celtics team in a while. Like these guys, 1 through 15, know their role, are playing it very, very well. I wouldn't say perfect because nobody's perfect and you're going to have flaws, and that's just how that's just how life is. And they're doing it on a night-to-night basis. I mean, you're going to have these mix-ups and you're going to have these games where it's like, oh, it's just not our night. Celtics haven't had much. Celtics have not had much of that this year. And, this was a conversation in the group chat earlier this evening it's like out of the 16 Celtics losses, how many of those losses did the Celtics lose themselves? How many times? And that was an issue in the playoffs last year and also in the playoffs the year before. And when you have a guy like Peyton Pritchard, to stay more on topic, who could consistently fill his role so well. And I mentioned it the other night. This was a guy that was consistently getting coaches' decisions, did not plays. And now he's becoming one of our best, if not our best bench guy.
Right.
And obviously these games are great for reps, but I think I speak for all of us. And I hate to be this type of guy. It's like we're waiting around. Like we can go 0-6 or 6-0 in these last 6 games. We're the number 1 team in the East. We're the number 1 team in the NBA. We need to see this come playoff time.
I completely agree. Because again, they have there's nothing new. The Celtics aren't going to show us anything new at this point. So I think at this point, number 1, you ask me, all right, Robbie, what's the most important thing for the Celtics these last 6 games? It's health. These guys need to be healthy. More important than anything, right? I mean, I even need Sam Cassell feeling loose and ready to go because I need everyone at their best, feeling their best. You ask me number 2, confidence. I want this bench crew real quick, Justin, to gain some confidence, right? Because I really think that as great as the reps are, the confidence that Pritchard and Hauser and Cornette are playing with is going to come a long way for this team.
Yeah, and it's like every little thing you have to take into account where it's like Jaylen Brown as of late has kind of been complaining a little bit about his hand bothering him, went to get some tests, nothing serious. Boom, don't risk it. Bench him. Right. Don't play him. Don't play him. Al Horford stubbed his toe. Boom, don't play him. Like Jaden Springer has been having some knee problems. Even though he hasn't been a huge rotational piece this year, he's still going to be a guy on the roster come playoffs that you can go to, especially when playoff games come down to defense, game slows down a lot. Jaden Springer is a guy that you can use. You don't, there's nothing to risk. There is no reason, especially when the schedule is as easy as we're coming down to. First of all, you clinched a 1 seed, so you don't want to get hurt anyway. No one wants to say they tore their ACL, clinched a 1 seed, game 82 out of 82 playing the freaking Washington Wizards. Like nobody wants to say that, right? So I totally agree with you, Rob. Health is the key here in these final 6 games.
And I'll write it off your confidence statement. Guess who just gained a big confidence point tonight? Xavier Tillman.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know how much a buzzer beater, all those guys jumping around you, probably celebrating on the way, running down the tunnel, slapping you on the back as you're going into the tunnel. Now you feel like you're a part of the team. Played 19 minutes tonight, was able to get 9 points. Was shooting some confident 3-pointers that I would like to see I wouldn't mind seeing during playoff time if the ball is kicked out to them in the third
Right.
quarter. And one thing that I have noticed about this team and is they can get those momentum shifts, who can carry over and keep it going and be able to maintain it after they get it. They can get the lead up to 30 points, but who's going to be able to just hold it there?
Right.
Because they pretty much the bench rotation should be feeling like when they go in with a 25-point lead that they're going in at the game with 0. It's 0-0 when they go into the game, and they just need to maintain a score that is respectable and is able to allow the starters to relax, and the more the better they play, the more time they have on the court. Simple as that. And we're gonna see a lot of that, and Xavier Tillman's performance tonight is gonna be a huge confidence boost to him. Expect to see one of those performances from, like, a guy like Svi Mykhailiuk, and I would love to see O'Shea Brissett have a
Mhm.
decent night in the upcoming nights, because if he gets his confidence going as well during playoffs, I think he could be a spark plug player, especially with his intensity on offense and defense.
Mhm.
Right. So let's do something real quick, guys. Let's fast forward. I've been rewinding a lot. I've been hopping in the time machine a lot these past couple post games. But let's speed past these next 6 games here, and let's talk about some potential first round matchups for the Boston Celtics. As you see, Celtics currently speaking have 2 favorites via a playoff. It's called, oh gosh, I forget. Playoff
Probabilities.
playoff probability. It's a website that does this that I'm trying to give him credit for. I'm sorry.
Playoff status.
Playoff status, correct. Shout out Justin for that. But so right now, the Hawks and the Bulls are tied for the
Water.
right now. The Hawks and the Bulls are tied for the highest probable odds to play the Celtics. Right, 25%.
Pillow.
Which is interesting, right? Obviously, Sixers 23, Pacers 13, Heat 11, right? It's interesting because the Heat are 11. Again, I don't really know how this whole thing works, but again, guys, out of these 5 teams, the Celtics have had a decent amount of success against 4 out of the 5 of them. Obviously, the Atlanta Hawks last week gave the Celtics hell in Atlanta, but looking at these 5 teams, who do you least want to see with the playoffs approaching? Is it obvious?
I'm looking at them.
I don't. I you know my approach. I want Miami, but I
Yeah.
would the least the person I would or the team I would least want to see is the Indiana Pacers, because I feel like they could have the more aggressive series against the Boston Celtics out of the 3 others, because Chicago, I would love to see Chicago at full health. That's one of my teams that I've always had hope for to see with Lonzo, with their entire rotation going, Levine, but they're all out for the season. So
Right.
I feel terrible for them, but this is just not their year. Atlanta
Mhm.
Hawks, they gave us their all last year. They were able to test us. If anything, if they're matched up with the Atlanta Hawks, that almost has to be a 4-game series in the eyes of the Boston Celtics, especially after losing 2 games in a row to them
Mhm.
in Atlanta. That would be I would go in there and aggressively sweep them. And Philadelphia, always an interesting team, but I think injuries got them. But Indiana is probably the most scary team on that list.
I mean, give me Philly. With Embiid, I know Philly has been, playing better with Joel back in the lineup. But I I don't it doesn't matter. It does not matter out of those 5 teams, in my opinion. There's definitely teams that I think could give the Celtics more of a run for their money than others. But I'm also kind of with Franco on this. It's like 2 years ago when we played Brooklyn, it was like, oh man, like we got smoked by them last year and all these fears. It's like last year isn't this year. And those problems we had last year aren't the same problems that we have this year. Let's go out there. Doesn't matter who we get. Let's win as many games as we can in the regular season. Whatever seed we come out with is what we come out with. And, whatever happens in the play-in, we can't control that. So, as much as it pains me to say, I think I might be on Franco's side with this. I might just be rip the Band-Aid off. I also think that, say Boston does get Miami first round, and hey, say we sweep them, say it goes 7, doesn't matter. Say we come out on top. That's going to be extremely good for us. We can go out there. We can take care of business against Miami, a team that has given us hell even when we beat them in 7. 2 years ago. If the Celtics can go out and they could beat the Miami Heat in a series, now we know that they are better talent-wise. We know that. We know they are better than the Miami Heat, right? Last year, we were even better than the Miami Heat. But if we can go in there, beat the Heat in a 7-game series, I think that gives Boston the utmost confidence in going into a second-round series where you're playing a banged-up New York team or you're playing an inexperienced Orlando team, which you guys know me, I'm a big Magic guy. I give them a lot of credit, but
great theme song.
But Celtics are better than those teams as well. So, control what you can control, Rob. That's kind of the most direct answer I can give you because I think Boston takes all these guys in a series. I would tell you though, I don't know if your answer has changed, but since you asked me this a couple weeks ago, I think my answer still is the same in terms of I don't really want to see Indiana first round compared to the other 4 teams that are in front of me. I think Indiana definitely. I think Boston beats Indiana, but I think Indiana definitely gives Boston their run for their money and gives us the most difficult time.
So this question, I think, it's a weird one. Who do I least want to see? It's the Atlanta Hawks. And it's not because I think the Atlanta Hawks are gonna beat us. I don't think the Celtics wake up for the Atlanta Hawks, right? I think Chicago is bad enough where they'll just lose it for themselves, right? Philadelphia, the Celtics are gonna wake up for. Miami, the Celtics are gonna wake up for Miami. Right. Celtics are gonna wake up for Indiana. They're gonna wake up for those series. The one thing that I am currently concerned about, not even concerned, but the thing that's in question right now about the Celtics are, can they wake up and not make life harder on themselves? The one team that I can see the Boston Celtics doing that against, they did it last year, is the Atlanta Hawks. So it's like, frankly, I think we beat all these teams, right? I don't think any of these series go over 5. But I will say this. We saw it last year with Atlanta. They're a team that is well coached. They play hard. That I do not want a first round that goes 6 games. Not at all. If a first round goes 6 games against any one of these 5 teams, even with Philadelphia in their current situation with Embiid coming back, I will not be happy, and I will be kind of leaning towards pressing that red button on my desk because the Celtics, and Ian said this last post-game show, and I think it was very, very well said by Ian, the Celtics need a playoff run that is so convincing and so dominating that it shuts everyone up. And I think that out of all these playoff matchups, they're going to wake up and shut all of 4 out of those 5 teams. I don't think they shut up the Atlanta Hawks because I think Atlanta, with no Trae Young, the Celtics still have that thing where they're maybe potentially, I'm not saying it's going to happen, right? But it's like maybe they just subconsciously don't take them or do take them for granted, and Atlanta walks into a magic 6-game series against us yet again.
Best mouth of the show would be Miami.
Right? And then, the team I want is Miami because we wake up the most for.
And I think Atlanta kind of screwed themselves with the wake up theory in play.
Yeah.
I think the fact that they beat us 2 games in a row might wake up the Boston Celtics, and they're like, oh, these guys have beat us before, and they will remember how confident Atlanta's feeling about it.
Sure, but at the end of the day, that's like, oh, yeah, that'd be awesome if the Celtics thought like that. We've thought that many times about this team. I think the thing with this team is it's not even that we just lost to Atlanta. It's the fact that they don't have Trae Young, and we've seen the Celtics struggle with that this year, no Donovan Mitchell, we lose. No LeBron and AD, we lose, right? It's just like this feeling, even though it's the playoffs, guys, it's the first round. You're the 1 seed. They're the 8th seed. They're not going to beat us. In no world do the Hawks or any of these teams, I think, beat us, knock on wood. But it's just about the Celtics being able to handle business when they need to, so that come the Eastern Conference Finals, potentially, and come the June in the NBA Finals, they're well rested. Their legs aren't dead. There's not that excuse. There's not a situation where Tatum falls on the first play of the game and rolls his ankle and costs the Celtics a trip to the final, right? It's like if the Celtics had just handled business, those situations would not have happened. So this year, I don't want to see Atlanta, because I think that's the likelihood of the Atlanta Hawks stealing 2 games is way better, I think, than the likelihood of the Heat or the Sixers. And even, guys, if the Heat or the Sixers do steal a game or 2, which I think is very likely or possible, I think the Celtics are up and they're active. I think the Heat and the Sixers are just got some experience, and there's some 2 solid teams, and they're going to get a couple games on you. That's how a playoff series works, right? It's about a mentality thing. It's about an attitude thing. It's a statement that the Celtics need to make.
Do you know what I want to see from this team this year? And
a ring,
and that's anything. And that's anything. Doesn't matter what team we play in the first round. I want to see the Celtics start off the series strong. I don't want to see game 1 dropped, especially against like a team like Atlanta. Obviously, I don't want to see any games dropped, but I want, and similar to what Ian said, but each game 1 of each series, I want to send out this message that like we are the better team. We are the dominant team. This is why we are controlling the series. At no point in this playoff run, and I get it, it might happen, but this team, in my opinion, especially when healthy, they should not be down in a series. There's no team in the Eastern Conference. I don't care if it's 0-1. I don't care if it's 2-1, 3-2. There is no reason this playoff series, there is 0 excuses that this team should be playing games, back up against a wall. Last year, we fed off of that. I'll admit, like, there were times where it's like we felt comfortable being down 3-2 than we did up 3-2, and that's not not the right thing.
And you know what, Justin? I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt you, but you know what the thing about it is too is like if you look at it, it's like they have been so good at home all year.
Yeah.
If they keep doing that, then they won't be down, because they've been they haven't, knock on wood, they haven't lost a home game to an Eastern Conference opponent all year.
Oh, God, don't say that. This is when it just said, this is terrible.
But you know what? I will say this, though. My jinx has not been a thing this year.
The first 2 years, the first like year
first
and a half,
2 years, the first 2 years were rough. But hey, you know
Portland
what?
Trailblazers are watching this post game live right now on the plane right here.
Western Conference.
Franco, there was when we first started this and we first started doing the post game shows, and Rob would go to the games. We lost like every game, Rob.
Every game. But you know what? Looking back at it, wasn't my fault. They just kind of sucked. Because you know what I'm saying? Like I since then I've been to some great game 7s, the Grant Williams game. Like, I've seen some games now that we've won. I've seen some losses too, but it's not my fault anymore. When they lose, they just suck, and when they win, it's because I'm there.
It's you, not me.
Hey, I've technically been in the building both times they were eliminated. Both
same
year. So
so it's Franco's fault. Put it on Franco.
Yeah, so it's Franco's fault.
Keep Franco out of the garden.
You have the soundboard.
But again, all jokes aside, they haven't, right? And that's they haven't lost to an Eastern Conference team. So, and I said this last post game, and quite frankly, I still feel it. There's not a team in the Eastern Conference right now, outside of the Celtics, that would get past the first round.
What's the score of the Milwaukee game?
I have it right here.
They were down 11 to the Raptors.
Yes, the Bucks lost to the Toronto Raptors 117-111.
So they didn't have Giannis, but you suck, Milwaukee. Oh man.
And that's the thing where it's like, all right, the Celtics, as bad as you want it to seem, however bad you want to make it seem, it's not. It's not. It's so much better than anywhere else in the league right now. We are 14 games, guys. 14 games ahead of the 2 seed. You know, the Minnesota Timberwolves, guys, are pretty much 14 games ahead of the 11th seed.
That's
think
like
about
historic.
that.
That's historic. That's
the
historic.
Celtics are the same distance from 1 to 2 than the Western Conference 1 seed is from the 11th seed. So it's like, as much as big a deal you want to make this season, when you look back at it, in totality, this has been a dominant. This is not a season, guys, that a 60-win team should exist. The league is so diverse and level that the Timberwolves and the Denver Nuggets will sniff it. They'll get like 57. We saw that last year, right? Milwaukee got 58. We got 57. Denver got 57. They're going to sniff it, but the Celtics are still going to finish like 6 or 7 games ahead of that.
They're going for 70.
Yeah, I mean,
they're going for 65. You know,
it really
is. I think, what would they have to win every game for that?
They go 4-2. And again, this is going to be something on next post game that I will have pulled up. If you remember correctly, you want to talk about jinx, there's a clip on the Instagram. If you go back, and I said this team can absolutely win 65 games. I said that word for word. So
in the beginning,
holla at your boy.
Yeah. I also said Shai could be MVP candidate.
You did.
A lot of people gave me their huh? Are you
side
stupid?
eye.
And I was like, no, I'm not stupid. Shai's the GOAT.
But I will say this, guys, again, just like the Celtics moving forward, these last games, these post-game shows are a little bit different. They're a little bit shorter. They're a little bit it's a lot different. It's just, quite frankly, we don't want to sound like broken records, because a lot of the stuff that we're saying has been said in the past couple post-game shows. But I think what matters most is that tonight the Celtics showed up and the Celtics got the win. 101-100, the Boston Celtics were able to defeat the Sacramento Kings at home. This is their 34th win at home, guys. Richard led the way with 21 for the Celtics. The Celtics will be playing the Portland Trailblazers at home at 6 o'clock. Come back here for Celtics Talk Weekly postgame show. I'm Rob. Next to me is Justin. And across the way is Nick Franco, guys. Until next time, the Celtics.